Windows Server Update Services, or WSUS, allows you to centrally manage and deploy software patches and updates in an Active Directory environment. Its primary function can be broken down into two categories: 1. Synchronization, and 2. Approval. Let's examine synchronization. WSUS centralizes update synchronization. Without WSUS, if your organization had 100 computers configured with automatic update, each one of them would have to download their updates one by one across internet wide area network connections that are much slower and have far less bandwidth than their local area network connections. In contrast, if your network were configured with WSUS, only the WSUS server would download updates and patches from the internet. It would then cache gigabytes of these updates and patches on its own hard drive. In turn, each of your 100 computers would download their updates from this WSUS server across high-speed local area network connections with much greater bandwidth. Let's take a look at the second aspect, which is approval. Through group policy, decisions can be made at the domain or organizational unit level and on the WSUS server that affect all the service packs, updates, and patches that are deployed to all the computers on your local network. Administrators can then decide at a central location what does and does not work for every host on their entire network. This is done by approving or declining each update on the WSUS server. In addition, computers can be placed in multiple groups that are assigned different types of updates based on their operating system, installed software, user and group membership, job function, and security requirements. WSUS employs three main components. The first is the Windows Update Synchronization Service. The second is Internet Information Services hosting the website or virtual directory. And the third is the WSUS Microsoft Management Console. Please make a mental note. Remember that after configuring and linking a group policy object, it can take between 30 and 90 minutes for those changes to take effect in Active Directory via automatic replication. To speed this process up, use the command gpupdate /force. Also note, sometimes when you add a new client to your Active Directory domain, it takes a long time for WSUS to update and recognize the new client. To speed up detection on the newly added client, use this command: WUAUCLT /detect now. Step 1. Download the WSUS installation file from Microsoft's website. We're going to set up a software update server today, or WSUS server. And we're part of an Active Directory domain. Pirates.the7cs is the name of our domain tree and forest structure. And this host here, Pegasus, is not a domain controller, it's just a member server joined to the domain. And we'll need some prerequisites. First off, we have to download the WSUS installation file. And to find that, you can go to Microsoft's website or even go to Google and just search for WSUS installation file. And it looks like the first link there is good. It's tech.microsoft.com. I mean, be careful. Make sure it's reputable and not somebody trying to phish you. So let's go here, and looks like this is a link to the download. So let's go grab that, and I'll paste it up here in my address bar. And it looks like that brings us to their WSUS site here, and I notice here is the download WSUS 3.0 Service Pack 2, so let's go grab that. And on the download page, looks like here they have several different versions. That x64 must mean that this is for a 64-bit version of 2008 server, and the x86 would be like a 32-bit version. And the one that I'm currently running is 32 bits, but you'll want to download the one that's appropriate for your version of 2008 server. So if you're running 64-bit, you download this one, but I'm going to grab this guy here. And I'm just going to go ahead and throw it in a folder here, WSUS. And I'm going to go ahead and grab this cab file too, right here. I'll just throw that in the same folder. And that will be, we'll use this in our implementation later when we install it and configure it, and then we'll apply it with group policy to the clients in our domain. Step 2, download the Report Viewer tool from Microsoft's website. With the WCCXE installation file downloaded, there's one more item I'm going to go Google for that I need to download. And this is just for some post-installation tasks and viewing some data and output from WSUS. So I'm going to look for the Microsoft Report Viewer. And again, if you went to Google and you were to type in download Microsoft Report Viewer, and I'm going to go grab the 2008 version here. I'll make sure it's off the Microsoft website. And again, you don't want to get fished there, but so I'm going to go ahead and download Report Viewer. And I'm just going to save it, and I'll throw it in the same folder as my WSUS installation file. Okay, so that gives us the prerequisites that we need to begin the installation process. Step 3. Install Internet Information Services and add the required web components. After downloading our prerequisites, the very first thing we need to do is install Internet Information Services and implement that web server role. So I'm going to open up Server Manager. I'm going to go to Roles, and I'm going to click on Add Roles. And WSUS is heavily dependent on that, the web server role. So I'm going to check that option, and there's a few dependencies and things we'll need to add. So I'm going to go in the left pane here and click on Role Services, and I want to add ASP.NET, and I'm going to add the required role services. And I'm going to scroll down, and under Windows Security, I want to add Windows Authentication here. And I'm going to scroll down, and I also want to add the Internet Information Services 6 Metabase Compatibility right here. So IIS 6 Metabase Compatibility. And then I'm going to click on Next, and I'm going to click on Install. Okay, and installation has completed. Step 4. Add the Windows Internal Database feature from Server Manager. Next, we need to add the Windows Internal Database feature. And again, like roles, that's found in Server Manager. And I want to go over here to Features this time. And I'm going to select Add Features. And I want to scroll down towards the bottom. And what I want to check is this option here, the Windows Internal Database. I'm going to select Yes, Next, and Install. And installation has succeeded. Step 5. Install the Microsoft Report Viewer tool you previously downloaded in Step 2. Now we're going to install the Microsoft Report Viewer that we downloaded. And so I'm just going to go over here to WSUS where I downloaded it and double click on the executable. And you know what? So that you can see the file extensions, let me enable that. Go ahead and do that here. And just change the way some things look there. Okay, so here's the reportviewer.exe. I'm going to double click. I'm going to run that. And just go through the install wizard. Yes, you give your firstborn child to Microsoft and click finish. There. Step 6. Install the WSUS installation file you downloaded in Step 1. The next thing we want to do is go and find Software Update Services, the installation file that we downloaded from Microsoft's website. And remember, I've got the 32-bit version, so I'm still on x86. If you have the 64-bit version of 2008, you would have downloaded the 64-bit version. So whatever version you downloaded, double click on it. And go ahead and click on Run to get past user account control. And now Windows Server Update Services 2.0 Service Pack 2 Setup Wizard, I'm going to click Next. I want to do a full server installation, including the administration console. I'm going to click Next. It's going to go through the preliminary setup, and then I accept the terms of the license agreement. I'm going to click Next. To store the updates locally, I'm just going to go ahead and put them in this folder here, the one that I created for the downloads. And use existing Windows internal database on this computer. I'm going to go ahead and click Next. And we'll walk through the installation process. I'm going to click Next. And use the existing Internet Information Services default website. Yes, I want to select that option. I'm going to click Next. And Next. So far we've gone with all the defaults. Okay, and finally installation has completed. I'll click Finish. Now it's going to launch a post configuration wizard, and things we should do before starting. I'm just going to click on Next here. Go. Yes, I would like to join the Microsoft Update Improvement Program. I'm gonna opt out of that for now. Synchronize from Microsoft Update, and that's where I want to synchronize from. I'm gonna go with the default there. I'm not using a proxy server on this network. I'm gonna go with the default. And then notice the option here. We can choose Start Connecting. I'm gonna click on Start Connecting. Go ahead and check the Windows Update websites. And right now WSUS is gathering information about the types of updates available, the products that can be updated, and the available languages. Okay, and I'm going to fast forward through this just to save, to cut the size of the video down, but just be aware that this took some time. It took about 5 minutes to go out there and synchronize and find what updates and things I needed in my Active Directory domain and what was available. So be patient. I'm going to click Next. And then on the next screen I have these options: download updates only in these languages, and again, to save disk space. And because most of my users speak English, I'm going to choose English. But you would choose the language appropriate for you. I would be very cautious about clicking all products because you're talking about tons and tons of updates and things. But notice that we can go through and specify the products for which we want updates. And let me try to narrow this down to just a few things, so we're not downloading an enormous amount of updates that would take forever. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of Office. Again, for your network, you'd probably want to download and let WSUS manage your Office updates for you. But for this tutorial, I'm going to try to keep it short. So, fast forward. Okay. And I'm going to select Synchronize manually. Notice that you can put it on a schedule. Right? You can control when it synchronizes automatically. I'm going to click on Next. And then launch the Windows Server Update Services Administration Console. Begin initial synchronization. I'm going to split this up into a separate step. So I'm going to untick this or uncheck that option there. And click on Next. And click on Finish. When I do, the Windows Server Update Services Administration Console pops up. And this is what we can use to manage WSUS. Step 7. Perform the initial synchronization to download the required updates for each operating system and product. WSUS installed, I'm going to begin the initial synchronization. And in my usual MO, I'm just going to go ahead and add another icon to my icon farm there. And I'm going to open up Windows Server Update Services, and I want to go down to my server name and synchronizations. And I'm going to right click, and I'm going to say Synchronize Now. Fast forward. And the synchronization is now complete and succeeded. And in this case, there were 1,432 new updates that were downloaded. Step 8. In Active Directory, configure and link a group policy object to the domain or organizational unit you want to manage with Windows Software Update Services. The next thing I need to do is configure group policy and create and link a GPO in my domain to finish applying software update services. So I'm on my domain controller here, Galactica, and I'm just going to go into Administrative Tools and open the Group Policy Management tool. And under the Group Policy Management tool, I'm going to create and link a group policy object here at the domain level. So pirates.the7cs, I'm going to right click. I'm going to say create a GPO in this domain and link it here. And I'm going to call this WSUS update policy. Okay, and then I'm going to ignore the warning message, and I'm going to right click on my GPO, my group policy object, and select edit. And in the group policy management editor, I want to go to computer configuration. I want to open policies. I want to go into administrative templates. I want to go into Windows components. I want to go all the way down here to Windows Update. And then there's two settings I need to configure in my GPO under Windows Update of administrative templates. That is, I need to enable right here where it says configure automatic updates. So I double click, I'm going to enable this. I click enabled. And notice the different options here. I can choose notify for download and notify for install. And that way, if the person logged on, if they don't have administrative tasks, it won't bug them. And if they do, it'll give them the option of not downloading. It won't force it on them if they're in the middle of something. I can automatically download it, and then it'll be there locally on their machine, loaded from the WSUS server, but it'll still give the administrator the choice of whether or not they choose to update and install. I can auto download and schedule the installation, so I can automatically download it and it can sit there and wait for like some opportune time, like 3 in the morning when nobody's there to install. And I could allow a local administrator to choose the setting, whether or not they choose to update at all. So several different options there. I'm going to choose number 2, notify for download and notify for install. And notice that I could schedule it. In this case, every day and the scheduled time 3. You can kind of play with that in terms of schedule if you want to. But I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. And then the next setting I want to modify is specify intranet Microsoft Update Service location. So I'm going to double click and I'm going to enable. And I need to specify the URL, HTTP, and then for me it's just the host name of my server, http:///Pegasus. And Pegasus, okay. So now my server has been configured, and I'm going to click on OK. And I'm done with this group policy object. And I can close the group policy management editor, and it's linked. And if I want to wait an hour and a half or about 90 minutes, I can between 30 minutes and 90 minutes, that's when group policy replication takes place automatically. But if you don't want to wait, you can use the command line tool GP update and use the force option. Okay, and now I'm going to go look at our WSUS server and we'll finish the configuration. Step 9. Verify that the Active Directory computer accounts and the domains and organizational units where you link the group policy object are now detected by the Windows Software Update Services server. So we've installed our WSUS server and our server update services, and we've configured a group policy object and linked it to the domain on our domain controller when we ran GP update to update and refresh the group policy. Now I'm back on the WSUS server, and let's just see what that looks like in terms of any computers that were added or refreshed. And notice if I go here to the front page, it'll tell me computers getting updates and unapproved updates, and I've got all the facts and figures here that I can use to manage my WSUS server, figure out what kinds of updates I need to employ. Notice here is the fully qualified domain name, or FQDN, of my domain controller, galactica.pirates.the7cs, the IP version 6 address, the operating system version 2008 Enterprise Edition. Let me kind of pull some of these other columns over here. 91% as far as installed or not applicable percentage, and then the last report here. So on that item. Now, there's other computers and things I don't see here, such as my Windows 7 host or workstation. So I'm going to want to go ahead and add that into, it's joined in, into the domain as a member, but it just hasn't updated yet. And I can force that. There's a command line tool that I can use to force that. So we're going to hop on over to the Windows 7 client, Starbuck, and we'll do that. 10. Troubleshoot or refresh any clients that do not show up in the Windows Software Update Services Console Manager. Use the tool WUAUCLT/detect now. So I'm on my Windows 7 client workstation, hostname Starbuck, and I'm going to put a command prompt. And in this command prompt, I'm just going to use a command line tool, so I don't have to wait between 30 and 90 minutes for things to update automatically. So we'll kind of force things along here, and it's WAUCLT.exe, and use the detect now option. Okay. And then that'll go ahead and, so Windows Update Services should now go out and communicate with the WSUS server. Now let's head on back to the WSUS server and see if our Windows 7 client workstation shows up. To the WSUS server, Robin. Now that I've installed Windows Update Services, I can go ahead and open up my console. And remember, we installed it. We created a link to a group policy object specifying that we use automatic update with Windows Software Update Services. We refreshed the group policy object, and we used the command line tool WAUCLT, and then with the detect now option. So opening up, my WSUS console management tool, notice that I have computers that need updates. In this case, here's my domain controller running Windows 2008, and it's the fqdn galactica.pirates.the7cs. And I kind of like this front interface here, the front page. At a glance, you can see here's all my approved updates, declined updates, computers in this case that are in the group. And notice I have, here's my 2008 computer, Enterprise Edition, and that's the domain controller. And here's my Windows 7. So all of these are being managed by the group policy in terms of having updates. And I can go over here to the synchronization tab if I want, and I can manually synchronize, or I can put that on a schedule for my WSUS server. And I can also change what I want to synchronize as far as the contents. If I want to do products and classifications, I can go down and choose exactly what I want to update and what I don't want to update. Let me go back here and let's look at approving and declining. So there's 222 critical updates and 1,193 security updates. I'm going to go to critical updates. And let's look at some of these that have not yet been approved. So if I were going to approve some of these, I would right click and highlight them. And I would click on approve, and then come down here, and then I would go ahead and select approved for install and click on OK. And then close, and when I do that, notice that they're all primed for installation. And that's 2008. Let's go find some Windows 7 here. Here's a Windows 7 update. I'm going to approve that update. And then approve that for installation. Okay. And we go find one more. Here's an XP. I'll approve that for installation, even though I don't have anything in a computer group right now that's XP. But okay, and then this way, so now I can get, through group policy, I can get WSUS to manage the updates on my computers, and then based on what I configure in the group policy object, my clients, my workstations, instead of them going out to the Windows Update site, they're going to go instead and check with my WSUS server. And that gives me some wonderful benefits. First of all, it's just darn well a lot more efficient. They don't all have to use my slower WAN connection to the internet. They can all download at high speed. I only download my updates once from the internet on my WSUS server, and then let's say that I had 100 clients on my local area network. They all get their updates at high speed on the local area network from the WSUS server. But even better than that is the fine level of control I get, and the amount of automation that I can configure. It's a great way to manage my updates because I'm not having to sit here and do everything manually on 100 clients. I can control who gets what and when and how it's applied and schedule it, or there's just so many different settings that I can apply all from within group policy. So all in all, a wonderful tool, and kudos to Microsoft for software update services.